Have you ever wanted to change your life or thought about reinventing yourself? Welcome to Room for Reinvention podcast. I'm your host, Kim Conant. Join me here as I interview people who share their stories of overcoming fear and life transitions to reinvent themselves. On our second episode today, I'll be talking with Ellie Davis and Kirsten Alm. Ellie is a writer and now turned hemp farmer, and Kirsten Alm is a holistic health coach. This is cultivating work that feeds the soul, overcoming fear of starting a new business. We talk about ADHD, menopause, herbs, microdosing, and finding your passion. Here we go. Hi, Ellie and Kirsten. Welcome to the second episode. Thank you for being here. We are talking about cultivating self-growth with work that feeds the soul. And Kirsten, we'll start with you. I recently just listened to this podcast on NPR that was, what was it called again? Oh, The Great Reinvention. And it was due to the Great Resignation. This has, the Great Reinvention has come out of that with people wanting more meaningful and purposeful work that feeds your soul. So why don't you tell us about I think that when we were talking before, you had told me that you were looking for something with more purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually it was kind of during the pandemic, that having that time really gave me a chance to kind of step back and like reevaluate things, and I just, I really felt like I wanted to have something where I had joy day to day. Right. And I was doing something that was in alignment with my values. I had been in sales and marketing for a while, and I'm just not motivated by money. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but and that's not exactly good for sales and marketing. You want to be motivated.
Exactly.
It wasn't really cut out for sales. So, like I said, during the pandemic, I really kind of took a step back and just thought about what really motivates me, and helping people has always motivated me. I was a teacher for a little bit, and I loved that part of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and then I kind of was like, okay, so I like helping people. What else? What gets me in a flow state? So, one thing that, I lose track of time when I'm reading self-help books or reading, self-help articles or looking for healthy recipes. Those are my really, when I really lose track of time. So I was like, okay, so how can I integrate this? And, I'd always kind of heard about health coaching, and I wasn't really sure exactly what it was, but so I did a little research on it, and I found the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and, they had a year-long program. So I kind of thought about it, and I checked it out a little bit, and all the lectures were really these amazing people like Dr. Andrew Weil and Mark Hyman and Christiane Northrup, and, all people that I already knew. And so I was like, all right, well, this is looking good. So I signed up for the program, and, I loved every minute of it. And I finished about a year ago with that. And then, kind of started trying to build my business up. And, that's definitely not been easy.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the past, I've always been kind of really afraid to put myself out there. And you really, if you're going to build your own business, you have got to put yourself out there. So, what really helped me was, just kind of, I think in the past, I've also been afraid of failure. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what really helped me was the realization that it's, learning is really, learning comes from maybe making mistakes, and, you learn more from a mistake than you do from a success, most likely. Right. So, so I kind of was okay. So, and then I don't know if you guys listen to Brene Brown or read
yes.
books. Yeah. I mean, she's, she was talking about her first TED Talk and how everybody just really like tore her apart for her weight, and just like she gave this brilliant TED talk, and everybody was focused on her weight, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
She, like,
Did you know that?
Yeah. It's awful. So, and so she just was like, I drew my curtains and I just like sat on my couch and watched Netflix for like, weeks at a time. And then she came across this great quote by Theodore Roosevelt. And it's
I love this quote.
I love it. And, I'm going to bosh it up, but it's basically just says like, the critic has no place to, criticize the person in the arena who's actually doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, that's, absolutely. If, you can't fault somebody for just getting out there and trying their best. And
exactly.
So that's really been, really great for me. And I have definitely, of course, like stumbled along the way, and I continue to. But, it's been really like, I've grown as a person a lot through this.
Absolutely. So many things, we're all taking a risk right now doing something new, right? With our lives, this podcast.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because during COVID, so many people were able to re-examine their lives and be influenced by Brene Brown and all these other people because we were at home, right? And it was kind of like the mentality is, okay, if not now, then when? So at this point in time in our lives, in this world, we have an opportunity to become whatever we want with having access to social media and having a platform. And also the old ways of working for a company and having a pension and all of that is going away. And there's more people who are reinventing themselves and with their work. And you can reinvent your whole entire self. We know that, but we're talking about work today and overcoming fears and all of that. You're right, Kirsten. That was part of what I had to go through. And I'm sure Ellie,
Well, no, I just had this realization as I heard you speaking, but I would argue that it isn't so much reinventing yourself. What I've seen you do is that I feel as if you're someone who has been carefully curating a type of life that is really healthy and beneficial to you.
Yes.
And then you're now saying like, golly, I love doing this so much, this stuff that I'm going to do it and help other people curate their lives. Because it's like, I watched a movie at their house last night. They have a whole part of their home that is just for wellness. Like they went and got me and like put it around my neck and he ended up. It's like, I was like, dang, like this is I want to come.
That's awesome.
Exist how you exist.
But I think that your reinvention is not becoming a different person. It's actually, right? It's tapping into your authenticity and finding, like Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss, finding what you flow, what you had said before.
Yeah. But I think we need a new word for it. I think that rather than reinvention, I think you're going to come up with a new word that's basically like, oh, this is stuff we've been doing all along, and now I'm going to find a way to monetize everything that I'm really about.
Yeah. Well, I think, the word reinvention, I think, right. There's many different things. You can say, I want to become a different person. So that requires, maybe I'm not living, to my values, right? Or I'm in a job that everyone's told me that I should do, my parents or whatever. So it's kind of like reinventing how you go about finging those things in your life and becoming more authentic to yourself. And sometimes it does change because we want to get rid of bad habits. So anyway, there's a whole lot to talk about. So, okay, Ellie, tell us, I'm a hemp farmer, a writer, like this is really rad.
But mine doesn't have anything to do with COVID.
No,
that's
and
okay.
Just when you said capitalism, just to say, in 1994, I moved to South Africa. I lived there for a number of years. So I think at a very sort of like specific stage of my life before I had started making money from graduate school or whatnot, like I saw people who were so wildly happy and pretty poverty stricken that money hasn't really been something that
has driven you.
Now in the past, now as a business owner, I'm like, I need to figure some things out.
Yeah, we all need money, right?
Moved to Charleston, couldn't find a job, ended up, but I wanted to stay. I'd moved, back to the States. I liked it, wanted to live in a walking city. And I thought, what can I do? And at that point, Amazon had just, was, Amazon, but they had Create Space. And so at some point, this company called Book Surge, which was doing self-published books, I figured out that I could write book covers for them and make $75 a pop. So I was like, this is work. And through the print on demand, through that, at one point being sort of the disruptor, like I ended up going and spending a week or two, I forget, at a class at Yale University as a publishing course, and making these connections and sort of seeing then like this boutique company that did really well for a number of years as a disruptor for like 10 years. And then I was disrupted. And then so it was sort of like, so when I went to farming, basically I think I had did one thing. And I think like in my life, every 7 or 8 years or something, I'm like, what do I want to do next? When that money went away or was sort of problematic, I still work with Ingram Spark, and I do take on clients, and I have editors that, it's part of my income. But I was like, what else do I want to do? And the first thing I thought of was farming. And I thought, that's ridiculous. Like, no one farms anymore. And then I thought, well, people have been farming longer than they've been writing, so surely there's a way. And so I went back to school.
But why farming, though? Just real quick. That just like something you've always wanted, or?
I would say I love playing like dirt, and like I love that. But also I love, speaking of capitalism, I love how pure the act is of putting a seed in the earth or in a pot and then having something grow that didn't exist before.
Yeah, that's cool.
The same thing I like about writing. Like, and I ghostwrite books, so people are typically giving me the ideas, right? Like, I do some,
it's cultivating, it's creation.
Some concepts, but just to say, like something didn't exist and I wrote it into being. So I've liked both of those, but farming, I don't think there's a better day on the planet that isn't spent outside or in a greenhouse watching, beautiful things grow. Like,
wow, that's so cool.
Fascinating.
And what do you grow?
So and I'll never understand this, in the state of South Carolina, why they gave one of the original permits. I'm one of the original permits in our state, didn't own a farm, had never farmed in my life. And it ends up, and I've been told years later that I just had a really good application. And of course, as a writer, I had, I nailed it. They said everyone else pretty much signed their name and said how many acres and what they wanted to do. And I wrote like a 25-page synopsis of how I could start.
Like a business plan almost.
It was like, I took it to another level. But I did receive it. And it that was the trajectory from 2018 when I got the permit, 2019, 2020. And now it's been a brilliant ride. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned about taking a product to market. I've learned about, federal stuff, state stuff, the unfairness of a hurricane, Mother Nature. It's just been this extraordinary thing. And how tough it is in a market that's saturated and sort of still now trying to find where I'm going with plant medicines,
I'm sorry, just one quick question. So did you already have the land, or when you apply to become a farmer, the government is giving you the land?
Oh, the government, no.
Sorry.
The government didn't give me the land, but I ended up leasing property. So, but just to say, when I originally applied, I applied under a friend's property. And then we didn't end up going together. He took another path and I, ended up, I'm really interested in a bunch of different plant medicines. So hemp, been what I've been learning the last few years, but I've really enjoyed growing something called gigantic milkweed, which has been shown to be a powerful prohibitor of pancreatic cancer. I've grown echinacea. I've grown indigo. Like, I enjoy hemp, but it's really been frustrating to find what to do with that crop in South Carolina, quite frankly. Exciting. That's a guy I could have worked with. But
I see. So your product that you produce is for wellness.
I have a tincture and a balm.
Okay.
And then I do pre-rolls and I have smokable flower. But hands down, what I want to do is continue growing plants that different universities are studying for plant medicine.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So, but I don't know how to get that funded. I don't know what that looks like, and I'm still learning. And so just recently I am moving farms. So I've been at the same property since 2018, and we dissolved one farm and I started a new one. And, for whatever reason, my business partner just didn't have a passion for cannabis. He was like, he thought he'd come in, make a bunch of money, and it's just been a much longer journey. But I know this is where I'm meant to be. Like, I hands down don't know what will happen, but I know I'm just pretty confident I'm going to find my way. And my passion is are psychedelics. And so I'm really interested in, after my daughter graduates, to go to places where I can learn more about psilocybin and growing psilocybin and different plant medicines that are in the psychedelic field.
And then tell us what you do specifically for women.
Okay. So I am I specialize in helping people with their blood sugar management. So it's, I want to eventually really focus on women who are pre-diabetic because, you get into perimenopause and menopause and you are more prone to diabetes. So, so as a health coach, you really kind of are a partner with your client. You're not seen as an expert. You kind of facilitate, like, you help them set goals, help them kind of create like a wellness vision, what we call it. And you help them set their goals. And then you together, really it's the most impactful if the client really comes up with their own, solutions, because those are the ones that stick better. So you help them to create small action steps towards their goals. Mm-hmm. And, it's accountability, and then it's also support. And, it's like, also, it's just overwhelming. I mean, all the information out there surrounding health and, like, where do I start? And just like, what do I believe? What do I, so it's just kind of breaking it down for them and like, okay, where do you struggle the most? Is it sleep? Is it exercise? So, we kind of start there. Cause if your sleep's off, then everything is off,
exactly.
Yeah. Your stress hormones, your hunger hormones, everything. So, that's just kind of the process, I guess, the coach approach.
So are these women coming to you because they're like in perimenopause or in menopause and they're suddenly feeling tired and they don't feel well, and they're like, okay, I need to make some changes in my life. And like you said, do you have them go to their doctor and get blood work so then you can see what their hormone levels are?
Well, most likely, like, they've already had a diagnosis or,
okay,
kind of have gone to the doctor. So, and they know what they're working with, because, I don't have a medical background, so I can't really like diagnose or prescribe or anything. But, typically they know, from their doctor that they have, some issues that they need to work on. So, and, doctors are so busy. They can't, like, we have a friend, Ellie has a friend that, he's got some health issues and his doctor told him to eat more kale. That's like pretty much it.
And he did eat kale for about a week. Yeah, that's really impressive.
So
that's so funny.
Who's not like, who's not like interested in health. I mean, you don't really know how to even approach this issue. So that's what a health coach does, is like a little bit of hand holding, and
I'm glad there's only 4 people on this that watch your podcast.
No, I'm joking. We don't have any yet, but after this, it's going to blow up.
So have you gone through menopause?
Yes.
Okay. So I started it right at the advent of COVID. So I kept thinking I was getting sick. I had been working on a book in LA. I got back and I kept thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. I have a fever. I'm going to die of COVID. But it ends up I was just starting menopause.
Oh, it was a fever. It was like a hot flash.
Yeah. No. I feel like hot flashes, when people say hot flashes, I don't think it does it justice. Like it's like someone dunked you in lava.
Oh, wow.
And pulls you up. Did you never have any?
I had some, but they were very mild.
Oh, I had upper lip sweat. It was like a whole thing. But to say I treated it with black and blue cohosh. And so that was like part of it.
And what is that? Is that the microdosing?
No, it's it's an herb and you can make a tea with it. I ended up making a gin and I've never had and some people don't, have those issues, but I certainly had hot flashes until I figured out I could make gin with black and blue cohosh and treat it. But I don't think, and it sounds so cliche, but I don't think enough people are talking about menopause and plant
there's no
medicines.
research on it either. I mean,
that's another huge movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but what I would suggest is, and cohosh doesn't work for every woman, but I would suggest that I think microdosing through menopause for psilocybin or even microdosing LSD, which I haven't done, but I have friends, but they're very similar chemically, but I think will make a world of difference of people staying creative, managing sort of those what's next feelings, and just general health and keeping the mind.
I guess you overcame your fear of doing it, and Kirsten, you overcame your fear because you wanted to find more purpose in your life, and you were at a point where you were married and perhaps maybe had the opportunity to kind of step back and so with you, Ellie, you wanted to have a new career, and farming was always a passion for you.
Exactly.
Right.
And I would say, I don't think I've ever, I'm definitely not cut out for middle management or and I've struggled with that because I've never really worked for someone else, which I think is something with the ADHD. I was interested. I think if I would have worked for people, I would have been fired a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think I would have kept a job. So it's good. I kind of did my own thing, but it's really, I don't know. I think I've always been wired to do exactly what I want to do, which there may be good and bad to that. I have met so many people in the last, through COVID, through the farm, who are doing different things business-wise with CBD and THC and different products and healthcare, skin products, supplements, just crazy cool things. And I realized they're just going about it so much more reasonable. There are people who were, maybe they're computer programmers, and now they're going to do skincare lines or whatnot. I think a serial entrepreneur like me with ADHD is sort of,
It's sort of like wanting to have
struggle. But I would say I'm not. I've just always been wired this way. But I think people are figuring out a new way to exist.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of X-Gen people.
Yes.
I have a 16-year-old daughter, and it's like they genuinely, I think, have the strongest work ethic. They're willing to do things that they don't necessarily want to do.
Oh, wow. I have the opposite with
really?
my 17-year-old. Completely different.
Well,
that's boys versus girls too, I think,
Interesting. Yeah.
I just see a really good work ethic, and with farm hands I've had and people just really interested in following their passions, which, I don't know if the baby boomers had that option. I don't know. I think they were just sort of all lumped in together. this is how you make money. This is your beautiful house, 2 chickens in every pot, a car in every driveway, whatever the.
Yes, exactly. No, there's a huge explosion right now happening where people are even questioning whether they should go to university, to college. We have been taught that like life is like this linear construct, right? It's like go to college, get married, have kids, buy the house. And, probably for your 16-year-old and your stepkids, my son, they're going to be growing up in a different world. Mm-hmm. And we're part of it too, because we're living longer, right? So it's like, we want to be able to have, do something that's more purposeful and has more meaning.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I can't imagine going back to an office.
No. And I think that's what happened too during COVID. People were like, F that. That's how I was. I was like, no way. I was already looking for something, and I'd always put off what I love to do because I was like, oh, I can't make money doing that. And then once my story is similar to yours in that I started exploring more and figuring out what I loved, and I found my path, which I feel grateful for, but it's hard work. And I think that's a part of reinventing as well. It's a process, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it could take us to a different place that we didn't think we were going to go.
Do you want to say one last little thing?
No, say whatever you want.
I have met so many just really powerful women in the past 6 months through the hemp world who are doing these phenomenal businesses. And it is so wildly exciting to see. But I would say if we're calling that reinventing ourselves, that I think just somehow you will know inside, but keep on that path, because I think that there are opportunities that you don't, an entrepreneur or someone doesn't even know is out there until they're on their, what my daughter calls the hero's journey. So I think all of us, if we find our hero's journey and stay on it, and when just about the time when you've alienated everyone, when everyone thinks you're a little fucking nuts, you're on the right, you're exactly where you need to be.
No, and that's an important thing to talk about, because people don't change their lives because of the fear. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to go on that hero's journey, because part of reinventing yourself is learning who you are, self-awareness, and becoming conscious. There's a lot of work that you have to do to be able to start that hero's journey and to get rid of those limiting beliefs. I know that I spent all of 2020 with my head in a self-help book, listening to Brene Brown and Eckhart Tolle and everybody, and learning how to meditate and getting healthy. It also has to do with getting healthy. Once I started to find my passion and was like, oh, and learn more about myself and what I needed to overcome. And the quote that I heard was like, if you don't like your life, take a look around you, because every single action and decision and intention that you made brought you to where you are right now. You cannot blame other people anymore if you want to change your life. And I was like, shit, I got a lot of work to do. But once you get on there, it's like, and you're following your bliss and you're on that hero's journey. There's no stopping. You want to keep going because you see. And now I finally understand when they say, it doesn't matter how much money that you make. It doesn't matter what house you live in. It doesn't matter what car. Like when you're feeling shitty about yourself and maybe those things are like, you're like, fuck. But it's true when you're happy and following your bliss, because that maybe you don't have the car that you want right now or the house that you want right now. It doesn't matter, but that no matter what you're doing, all good's going to come. Money's going to come. Happiness is going to come because you're living your truth, right?
Yeah, everything's going to fall into place when you're on the right path.
Exactly. And new adventures, like you were saying, like you don't know where you might end up. I could be a hemp farmer next to you next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So I would like to know about what you both do a little, like with the hemp. I don't know. Can you just explain?
Hemp stuff, I have 2 products, a tincture and a balm. They're gentle folk. They're not for sale. We have a website coming. We've made some huge changes. So the dog leg site is down. The OG Farm site will be up in the next month. You can get products at the Veggie Bin downtown Charleston, or at a place called Hum Groceries out on Rockville, excuse me. And then I own Press. So for ghostwriting, it's press.com if anyone needs a book ghostwritten.
Okay.
PRESSQUE.com.
Yeah, and I'll put it in the transcript as well. And so you're going to be able to get your website, like people can buy product online eventually?
Well, they were last year. We're rebranding everything.
Oh, cool.
So we're just sort of like in a. Yeah, I mean, I think so. My original name for the farm was Dogleg Farm, but it ends up everyone thinks it's their pet products.
Oh.
Yeah,
so
the name doesn't matter.
Dogleg. So it's OG Farm. So Dogleg, basically a dogleg turn is a 90-degree turn, obviously. And so Dogleg for me was to be from a rider to a farmer. It was a metaphor to convey that big change in my life.
Yes.
And with farming, the new farm is OG Farms, a play on the original grower, or for weed, but also OGEE is an architectural term that basically it's found in Moroccan architecture, but there's two sort of wavy lines coming from a single fixed point. And I'm like, there are no right angles. It's all a bit of a journey with farming. So the metaphor.
Oh, that's cool. And one last question was, and I think this might be important for some people, and, you know, like financially, like, was it a risk for you to take this on, like becoming a farmer? Yeah.
I've lost everything. That's why I was like, I don't know. I genuinely have had such an extraordinary experience. But yeah, I've bet the farm. And it's definitely, this is my year to turn it around. But I cannot convey to you enough, like for someone who has lost basically all of my wealth in the past few years, that I feel as if I'm confident I wouldn't change any of it. I mean, I've had the most extraordinary journey. My CPA likes to say, now it's time to make money and put everything I've learned, you know, into whatever this next farm looks like. But I'm working with the African American Farmers Association, who were so kind to give me use of their greenhouses, and I'm going to help them build a seed bank for pretty much low country medicinal plants. So I think 2023 is going to be this extraordinary experience growing with them. We're going to be growing grapes for a vineyard.
Oh, wow.
Still some CBN, some CBD. So we've got like crazy cool things going on, but it has been a huge transitional year.
I'm sure. That's amazing. Yeah, I think it's important to ask that question because a lot of people don't try because they're like, I can't, I don't financially, I don't have a partner that could, like, luckily I have a partner who is able to take on the economic part that I'm, you know, when I started my venture was not bringing in. But it's definitely, we had to make some lifestyle changes, and yeah, mama needs money. So 2023 is my year of cultivating my business too.
All of that and getting the revenue stream from it. But I really wouldn't change any of it. But right. I would say I'm not married. I'm jealous of both of you. I always say we pray for a double yoke, but for a true entrepreneur, you're usually you're gonna have those high highs and those low lows. But those low lows, typically that's all you're gaining energy for something really extraordinary. So.
Yes, I agree. I've spoken with some people that are like, oh, I can't do that. I don't have somebody that can help me. And I've met so many people that do, whether they nurse it on the side, like I did for a year. I worked full time and did this full time. I killed myself, you know, starting something new. And for you, Kirsten, it's where can we find you? And also, you know, was it a huge risk for you? I mean, like you had to overcome the fear of putting yourself out there, which is huge, and starting something over, right? I mean, starting your own business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, for me, it's like the overhead is not, you know, I don't really have an overhead. So that was good. And, you know, I did I built my own website. I did all my marketing stuff. I luckily do have that marketing background, so that kind of made that easier. So, I have built it slowly. I think, definitely, if you want a strong foundation, you do take it slow. And, I feel like that's been a huge help to me. Are you laughing at me?
No, not at all. What I was going to say though is like, I don't think I'm the best. Like, I would love to do your podcast at some point, but like, I don't know if I'm the best for this topic. But what's weird is I know the most extraordinary woman named Shineman. She's from Nigeria she's this badass computer programmer who's now transitioned and is doing a line. It's called Sheology.
Oh, wow.
And she's just a badass and she buys my hemp flower. But when I tell you she is the most articulate woman who's making this exactly what this topic is.
But see, I think
I'm not really about this topic because I've never once reinvented myself. I've always been just pretty.
No, but I also think that what's important and part of this talk, which I say in my intro is, I didn't say, oh, I want to reinvent myself. I didn't say like, how can I reinvent myself? What's the process? I didn't Google it or anything like that. It was really what do I want to do with my life now? I'm turning 50. What do I want out of my life? It took me a really long time to get over like the loss of my divorce. I lost a lot of financial money and I was like starting over and it was overwhelming. And you're just like, so when you're struggling with that stuff, you're not really sometimes thinking about, oh, I'm going to reinvent myself. It was more just like falling into that and having the time of saying, I want more out of my life. And what does that mean? I want work, like Kirsten, like you were saying, I want work that gives me more purpose and meaning. And what do I really like to do? So maybe it's introspection, that causes the reinvention. And the reinvention is just being brave and overcoming obstacles to say, hey, I want to become a farmer and I've never farmed, but guess what? I'm going to do it. That's rad. You're totally perfect for this show. That's rad.
Fantastic. But I think I just want to make this point too, that I don't think people think as much about as they should, is like, it's okay to change your mind too. Like if I was a farmer, I may farm for 10 years and then I'm like, and I think once you're a writer and a farmer, you're always those things. Like I've always grown, I've always written, whether I'm getting paid for any of that, but like, it's okay. Maybe I want to cobble shoes. Do people cobble shoes?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Is that,
they do.
You know what I mean? Like maybe
but there's many reinventions throughout our whole entire lives, right? It's like life transitions. There's so many life transitions that happen, and through that a reinvention happens, and it's just a reinvention of self. It's like, oh, I'm going to now focus on health because I wasn't before, and that aligns with my values now of really wanting to take care of my mind and body. And then, it could be a complete overall reinvention. We're just specifically talking about, okay, reinventing what we do for work and what that means to us, as opposed to just like you said, only for money. Or thinking outside the box of like, okay, I could never work for anybody. I have ADHD. I've always loved soil. Okay, I'm going to be a farmer. I mean,
real quick.
Yeah.
I had an epiphany, but I'm so proud of you for this journey. Thank you. Because you were so unhappy at that company.
Beep. We'll beep it out.
So for me, I just realized, I think, and I keep saying this, I've met all these people doing everything right, but I'm like, but it is, I think doing what we're all doing is the bravest thing we will ever do.
Yes, agree.
Even if you have a partner who's helping you with the financial stuff, I don't have that, but I think it's still like,
it's a lot of uncertainty.
You're brave.
It's
I just never thought about it.
It's like so much uncertainty, right? It's constant uncertainty. And, generations before us, they worked the same job their whole lives and they had a pension and they got all that
25-year watch.
Yeah. Right. So it's a totally different ball game and, but it's totally worth it because we only get one chance, that's just really Like it's definitely not a dress rehearsal.
I agree. And that's the reason why I wanted to do this podcast, is because I had to really step up my networking this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I just keep meeting really, like you're saying, fascinating women who are doing really cool shit. And you're like, wow. And, you know, taking risks, whether they have financial help or not. I just wanted to bring that up because I have spoken to some people who are like, oh, I don't have anybody that can help me. And it's like, I know a lot of people who have worked 2 jobs because they want it so badly. So you don't necessarily, you know, need to have that.
I always like to say this once. So I have a friend, her name is Patty Callahan Henry. She's a New York Times bestselling writer. And I just love this, that like she has everything you would need. She has a husband that can provide for the family, but she had 3 young kids. And it was sort of like, when I hear people making excuses, they'll be like, oh, I have the kids, or I have this or this. Like, so some things were in her favor, but that woman got up at 4 a.m. and wrote for 2 hours before those kids woke up. For like, that was her MO when she first started writing books. Like, and I always think like, yeah, if you get up at 4 o'clock and you work for 2 hours before the world is up, you can get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not even like, you don't even necessarily have to do 2 hours, even 15 minutes. Like, can, you know, really, like, it would be obviously slower, but you don't have to, like, you know, attack it, like approach it as a, you know, a big time chunk. It could be 15 minutes. Like, that's definitely, you know, contributes to your goals.
I used to say that writing, as a writer back in the day, before a child, I'd always say, like, if I can carve out, like, I really needed 4 or 5 hours to get into my groove. If I didn't have at least 2 or 3, I wouldn't even sit down at a laptop. And then after a child, you're like, I got 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I think, to like sum everything up, I think being able to overcome the fear and taking the risk to take a chance, you end up learning more about yourself, and there is a reinvention of some sort. And whether it's a new career, starting your own business, or your whole outlook, your values change, but new people come into your life and it's worth the risk, because like you were saying, life is short. We're only here once. And I think that some people get it earlier, but for me, as I started to turn 50, I was like, oh, okay. There's no more like, oh, when I get there in the future. It's like, it's now. So take everything I've learned, turn it, and like, let's move forward. So that's why I love talking to women like you too, because it's just reinforces that we have so much more to learn, but we also have, it's never too late to change your life. Basically what it comes down to.
That's right. Yeah. And like Ellie said, you can change your mind, and that's okay. You know, you learn something from every experience. And I think that's.
Yeah. And I think that once you do it, you're not as afraid, because you know, you've already done it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so Kirsten, your website is?
So it's calmcoaching.com. It's my first initial K, and then my last name, AHLM coaching.com.
Oh, I like that. That's super cool.
Thank you.
I love that that's your name.
I know. That's so awesome. Calm. You're right. Okay. Well, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you very much for being on the show. Is it a show? The episode?